In the ancient world, just as today, gods were pressed into political service. Shiva as a figure rippling with muscles bearing a trident, Skanda as a tall youth grasping a gleaming spear, Durga as a goddess slaughtering a buffalo. All these depictions were shaped by a place that confounds unitary nationalist imaginations, Greater Gandhara. Here, Iranic, Hellenic and Indic gods were combined in weird and wonderful ways by diverse elites, influencing the evolution of deities still revered today. I'm Anirudh Kanisetti, historian author of Lords of the Deccan. Welcome to Thinking Medieval, where every week we tell you something new about our complex, innovative past. Before you cancel me for today's video, please check out our research and citations, and remember that we're all figuring out how to think about our messy, bloody, dazzling history. Gandhara in present-day northwest Pakistan was the crossroads of West, Central and South Asia. At the peak of its power in the 2nd century CE, it was by far the greatest cultural force in all these regions. The Kushan Empire, which ruled Gandhara, was originally a Central Asian confederation. It moved from the borders of Xinjiang to Tajikistan and then to northern Afghanistan before arriving within the subcontinent. Along the way, the Kushans picked up new gods, learning to merge them together and to use them in royal self-presentation. It's really interesting to see how the Kushans treated Iranian gods, especially Zoroastrian ones. In his paper Iranian Gods in Hindu Garb, archaeologist and art historian Frantz Grenet points out that Zoroastrians had little interest in anthropomorphic images of the gods. To present themselves as being supported by the Zoroastrian Pantheon and vice versa, the Kushans simply took regional deities that already had anthropomorphic forms, such as the Indo-Greek gods, and depicted them on their coins with Zoroastrian names. Coins were tiny, portable pieces of royal propaganda, and they tell us how rulers wish to be seen. With a portrait of a Kushan ruler on the obverse and a popular god on the reverse, Kushan coins were excellent ways to claim divine favor. At least 15 Zoroastrian deities appeared in Kushan coinage. The supreme Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda was depicted as the supreme Hellenic god Zeus, Mithra as the sun god Apollo Helios, Ma, the moon god, as a male version of the moon goddess Selene, and so on. In a couple of cases, the Kushans attempted to integrate a South Asian god with Iranic or Hellenic models. A fascinating case of this is of the god Oesho Shiva. In the late 1st to early 2nd century CE, he appeared on the coins of the Kushan king Vima Cadphises with the titles of Great Lord and Lord of all the world, which were also, conveniently, titles also used by Vima. These depictions were inspired by the Greek demigod Heracles with a muscular body and occasionally a lion pelt. But by the 2nd century CE, under the Kushan Emperor Kanishka and his successor Huvishka, Professor Grenet writes that, quote, "The iconographic ties with Heracles are severed and the god exhibits the 3-headed and 4-handed type of Shiva Mahadeva." He was also referred to by the name of an Iranian god Oesho, who was originally related to the ancient Vedic wind god Vayu. By this time, he was worshipped as a god of cosmic space in Afghanistan and parts of Central Asia. These depictions of the god became fairly standard in Kushan coinage. Shiva had already been a popular god in Gandhara and was becoming increasingly recognizable throughout South Asia, thanks to groups such as the Pashupatas. More in this video here. While Kushan subjects in Central Asia recognized Oesho coins as depicting their highest god, Kushan subjects in South Asia could recognize the same figure as their god, Shiva. The Kushans weren't the only ancient group integrating popular gods onto their coins. Around the same time, the Yaudheyas, a local group in present-day Haryana, were trying to claim another god for themselves, Skanda the Attacker. The origins of Skanda are unclear. In The Rise of Mahāsena, art historian Richard D. Mann examines various texts in search of answers. In the earliest traditions, Skanda was a terrifying 6-headed god. In the Vanaparva of the Mahabharata, he is linked to another spear-wielding young god called Vishakha. He initially had a terrifying personality, but when worshipped with Brahminical rituals, became a brilliant divine general. In the Mahabharata and in the Sushruta Samhita, which is an Ayurvedic text, Skanda is also associated with deities called the Matars or mothers and Grahas. These could be scary figures, sometimes even killing or stealing infants, but when worshipped, they would turn into protectors. In the early 2nd century CE, the Yaudheya polity was about to be conquered by the Kushans, and so they tried to assimilate this protective form of Skanda onto their coinage, depicting him and Vishakha along with the Matars. These coins were issued in copper for wide circulation, which suggests that the Yaudheyas were trying to appeal to the gods' worshippers. But it didn't work. The Kushans conquered them and expanded their control through the Gangetic Plains. Now, the Kushans weren't as interested in the fierce and protective Skanda of local traditions. Instead, they preferred his martial aspect, known as Mahāsena or Mahāsenapati, the great general. In Kushan sculpture, Mahāsena was increasingly depicted alone without any accompanying mothers. Carved in stone as a strapping young man with a spear, inscriptions from Mathura suggest that Mahāsena was being worshipped by local Kshatriya or warrior groups. In Gandhara, he was depicted wearing scale armor, popular with Indo-Scythians, who were the nomadic warrior confederation assimilated into the Kushan Empire. In the coins of the Kushan Emperor Hoveshka, he is shown with a bird banner, a Zoroastrian emblem of kingship. Mahāsena is also associated with the rooster, the bird of the Zoroastrian god Sraosha. The Rabatak inscription of the Emperor Kanishka actually makes this quite clear. Sraosha is mentioned as one of the gods leading the worship of deified Kushan kings, and the inscription says that, quote, in the Indian language he is called Mahāsena and he is called Vishakha. We can see the bold political intent behind Kushan royal policy to select, appropriate and meld together gods who are understandable in many ways to many peoples. Gods became figures who supported the Kushan ruler, both ritually and as foci for the devotion of diverse elites. The consequences of these ancient political calculations are still visible today. Many South Asian rulers would go on to claim Skanda's favor in later centuries, and it's as the general of the gods, as the son of Shiva, that Skanda is best known to Hindus today. In Greater Gandhara, the close contact of diverse cultures and religions led to ideas and gods flowing in both directions. But this process wasn't just an example of tolerance or of superior Indian gods being accepted by foreigners. As we've seen, these developments were driven by politics, a phenomenon that continued in the region for centuries after. More in this video here. As always with thinking medieval, we can see the futility of dividing up our complex histories along modern national borders and the enduring political utility of appropriating the divine. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Follow us everywhere on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Anirudh and at Connected Histories and on Twitter at Kanisetti. We'll see you next week.